Good morning, good morning, good morning. And bringing energy to the space. We're going to be talking about Atlantis. I will be doing numerology today. Actually, I'll be working on some numerology. That'll be a second live that I'll do today. I'm really excited about that because it's been a while. Excuse me as I clear my throat. My throat is very foggy today, filled with emotions. And I'm very excited about certain knowledges that are surfacing. The portals opened fully. I went into meditation this morning and I was told that the portals are still open. The gates to ascension are still open. They haven't closed. They just came into their full brilliance on April 8th. But the portals are open, and it is about the self-worth of the individual and the self-forgiveness and the seeking of... people have to recapitulate what they've done. Whatever makes them feel regretful. The worst thing that keeps us trapped in these conveyor belt 3D karmic incarnations is regret, self-loathing, and the inability to see, to see with honest eyes, compassionate eyes, but honest eyes, what we have done to others. And we have all, none of us are walking on water, my friends. We've all harmed others. So we're going to talk about Atlantis. And those of you who are going to stay with me to discuss it, it'll be meaningful to you because it was one of your homes. So Plato wrote about Atlantis thereabouts 400 BC. And for many, many hundreds of years, it was thought that it was a parable, that it was a myth, that it was untrue. And then I feel as if for some of us, the memory of Atlantis and this, how do I put this? It's because I don't want it to sound funny or weird. This feeling of this weird connection with, say, how do I put this? Tsunamis, Titanic stories, masses of water barreling in, though we had never experienced it, not even remotely, not firsthand, not remotely. Now, it's normal to fear masses body of water, I get it. But for some of us, we weren't triggered by seeing masses of water. It would simply come out of nowhere into our minds, and it would trigger something in us, a primal memory of having been there or having been alive when it was happening. Somehow not everyone perished, thank God, under the Didvish. But this memory of the end, I need to talk about more fully, and I'm going to do a video on this, by the way, a shorter video, of course. I'm probably going to do a series, because for many starseeds who were either part of the founding, ruling class, if you will, or I hate to say that, but because I can't articulate the words very well this morning, but what I know is that some of you founded Atlantis. Some of you lived during the golden age of Atlantis. Some of you saw the falling of Atlantis, and some of you were there when Atlantis fell. And some of you were all of the above. You had multiple incarnations. And remember, we used to live hundreds of years. Youthfully, dynamically, powerfully. So I remember reading Ruth Montgomery, and she's a forgotten, wonderful, wise channeler. Her name was Ruth Montgomery. And you will find her in the vintage book section, little paperbacks. Strangers Among Us is one of the famous books. And in it, she talked about how they were doing all kinds of weird genetic manipulation. Now, if you know anything about Atlantis at all, anything at all, it was considered the land of the gods, right? There was a separation between humanoids, as we know ourselves to be, more or less, and Devi and Devas. gods, or half gods and half human, which were the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans were the original, what you call Anunnakis, which Zachariah Stitchin talks about. They were the ones who were here to forge gold, right, for their needs. And if you know anything about gold, you know that it's good for skincare and it's good to heal things. It's actually an amazing healer. It's also used in certain parts of the world. You'll see desserts tipped in gold. That's a very Hindustani thing. It's also, you'll see it in Europe, in some parts of Europe. Gold and silver, pure gold leaf, pure silver, sterling silver leaves on food. It's edible, as you know, right? I hope you know that. And so you've got like a good 500,000 years of history of us being created as we are today, as we recognize each other to be, in the image of these incredible, powerful, sentient beings. And so it's not a stretch to imagine that here comes Ruth Montgomery in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s saying they were doing all kinds of weird lab work and creating creatures. This, again, remember, okay, we weren't really talking about cloning, okay, then, again. And she talks about centaurs. Centaurs are half human, half horse, which you'll see in paintings and through Greek mythology. Mermaids and merman, which you know about. And satyrs and other creatures. Some creatures that were quite, as she said, revolting, if I remember the word. And there was a faction of Atlanteans who knew that this was wrong. Well, no kidding. Can you imagine creating a half man, half fish, a half man or half woman, half horse? But it was so. It was happening. And they were treating them as subhuman, subsoul species. Subsoul, which is absolutely, there's a cruelty to that. Because as you know, the soul is an electric energy, right? That would embody any flesh and bone body, right? So if it wants to experience X, Y, and Z, it's going to embody that. And the fact that they were being treated like sub-soul, subhuman, in other words, inconsequential, not to give them any value or rights, was one of the issues that created the factions of Atlanteans. You could call them the rebel people, the rebel Atlanteans, who started fighting these so-called scientists, these so-called priests and priestesses. And so as the war ensued, because these were people who worked with high-level crystals and everything was energetically, crystals, quartz crystals were used, as you know, again, crystals are used in our watches, our phones, and other modes of communication and so forth and activation. Nikola Tesla was big on quartz crystals. As a matter of fact, some of his studies on energy, on thunder, and I forgot which state it was. It could have been Dakota, I'm not sure, but there was a cave that had been abandoned. That was a quartz crystal cave, and he had set his lab there for a while. There's a story of that. Crystals not only have memory, or store memory, and I mean like literally, if you have a crystal in your hand, right, and you are going through something massive, it will store all of your thought forms into its crystalline depth. And that's why it's very important to clear it and clean it through the moon, the sun, and salt water. Okay? So when the factions clashed, and many didn't think, because again, there's this thing of entitlement that we as humans often have. Like, it can't happen to me. Wars happen to other people. Things like that happen to other people. Right? Not to me. It'll never happen to me. That's a problem that we have as a collective. We all have it. And part of it is because we know we manifest our reality. But to be fair, sometimes it's beyond our control. You're at a place where suddenly it explodes into a war, and here you are stuck in the middle and you had nothing to do with it on any level. But so when the factions started fighting, the frequency, because imagine when you fight, it is a lowered frequency, is it not? So, so you had rebels who were fighting against this evil, and right there the frequency was so fucked that it couldn't sustain itself. So let's say Atlantis in itself was a 6D continent. Let's say, rather the planet was in the 5D spectrum, right? And suddenly these humans are fighting and hitting 4D and 3D consciousness in hate, anger, frustration, fear, all of the things that, we try to avoid, obviously. Then that would be an earthquake moment, wouldn't it? And what happens when you have earthquakes beneath the seas? You have tsunamis, right? And that's exactly what happened. You have to also understand that when you're around bodies of water, okay, and when you're dealing with crystals around bodies of water, right, you have crystal temples and crystal totems, and everyone's wearing crystal headdresses or crystals around their bodies, it augments the frequency you're at. Does that make sense? And boom, it fucking started collapsing. And so that's actually what happened. And for many of you, this was a traumatic. You're still dealing with the reverberation of the PTSD from that time. We all are. And I had done a video a long time, which many of you didn't see, because, you might want to scroll all the way down, but I'm going to do more videos on Atlantis because I've been invested in studying Atlantis since I was about 16 years old. I kid you not. And again, remember, I was 16 in the 70s. People weren't talking about this shit. It wasn't on TV. There was no internet. So for those of us who were fascinated by certain ancient, dead, mythological, quote unquote, civilization, that's not like random. Just like I talk about my husband, who was born in 1962, the year of the tiger on the side note, who in 1972, imagine a little 10-year-old in San Francisco saying, I'm from the Pleiades. I'm not from here. That's some advanced starseed stuff, right? So my point is that as you go through, as the portals open, okay, to the ascension, you might want to recapitulate what you're feeling about massive bodies of water. And anything that feels like scan your body with the palms of your hand, like rub your hands together, make sure they're nice and the electricity's going. And then hover your hands like you've seen your Reiki masters do it to you. If you guys have ever done this session with a Reiki person, healer. And just hover your hands over you and to see, as you're putting your mind into Atlantis, where is the blockages at? I'm being told to tell you that I've been thinking about Atlantis since last night. And I woke up with this intention out of my meditation. So that's why I'm doing this live, based on that. So hover your hands over where it hurts. All over, your ankles, your feet, everywhere. Just hover. And then wherever your hand palm stops, work on that. And go into an altered state of remembrance, of consciousness. Because again, you're putting Atlantis in your mind. You're scanning your body to see what somatically you're holding on to, which is definitely PTSD, right? So I don't know if you've ever studied people who go into past life regression through hypnotherapy, and they'll have a scar on their body, a scar that shouldn't be there because they never earned the scar in this incarnation. But it's a scar or birthmark. Sometimes actually it's a scar. Like I have a scar on my hand that I've had since I was a little girl, since forever, since memory. And there's no way I should have this scar because I was never cut there. And it's definitely a scar. So you may have that. You may have a birthmark. And it could be from battle. It could be from this. It could be from that. It could be from anything. Any type of traumatic or ending or what have you. So whatever comes up as you're consciously thinking of Atlantis, scan your body is my point. And then heal it. Heal it with compassion, forgiveness, purge it. You may get flashes of images. Please don't gaslight yourself. This is not the time. Because what's happening is that it's emerging for you to actually look at it and transmute it and forgive it. Many of us who actually watched our fail, because we failed, clearly, right? Many of us who were from the rebellion factions failed. And many of us were in twin ray connections. And so I talk about that in that video where that was the beginning of the end for us. That was our separation with our twin. We had failed. There was massive collective grief and individual grief and self punishment, because we could have done more. We should have done it sooner. If we had done this, that, and the other, it wouldn't have happened. But our beloved continent collapsed. And it collapsed in about, from what Plato says, and what Ignatius Donnelly, who wrote Atlantis, the Antediluvian World in the 1880s, within like a day, maybe a 36-hour period. So there were people who made it out. But you have to understand that it is hard to get on a ship as the water is going all the way back and then coming all the way back in, if you've ever seen how that works. And so not only was there the guilt of we failed and the massive self-hate or comment on dit, we punished ourselves. And some of us were not always, comment on dit, some of us who witnessed it, they're telling me to say that, some of us who witnessed it were not incarnated on the body. We saw it from afar. We saw it from above, if you want to put it that way. We saw it as spiritual beings. And we also felt guilt and regret because we could have done more in guiding, in warning, and we did not. So there's a lot of moving parts to this Atlantis thing. Now, for those of you who don't believe Atlantis existed, Plato had talked about a city called Troy. Troy is well known for Helen of Troy, the face who launched 1,000 ships. And Troy was also considered a myth until this German millionaire who was his hobby was archaeology, decided to hunt for Troy. Okay? And he found it. Carbon dating later on, like 100 years later, proved that this was actually Troy. He did find Troy. There was artifacts, gold, this, that, and the other. It was Troy. So he found it. The reason why we can't find Atlantis is it's beneath the ocean, my friends. And there's a lot of theories of where it is, from Bimini to all the way to, just take your pick or whatever you heard, to Iceland, some people say. It's the continent was massive. And it most likely tied, it was very close, say, probably bordering the U.S., South America, all the way to Europe. It would have taken that whole mass body of water. And it was and I know for a fact, okay? There's been a few books on divers, but I knew actually skin divers. I knew divers who lived in Nassau, Bahamas, because I used to hang there when I was 18, 19, 20 years old with these divers. And one particular diver told me he had found the columns. And they had set up, when you're a sailor, you put down the coordinates, right? For example, when you actually scatter ashes into international waters, a beloved, they give you the coordinates. So anyway, so they had set up the coordinates. And so they were coming back, and it was fucking gone. They also found spring water, which is not unusual. You will find bodies of water, spring water coming from the ocean. Absolutely. That's not unusual. Why wouldn't it be, right? But what was interesting is that there were some books written on that aspect, that there were columns, there were fallen whole cities. And with satellites and so forth, they're getting better at being able to see that. We just found Cleopatra, by the way. I don't know if you guys know, but we just found parts of her own domain right below Alexandria in the ocean, right there at the port. And that's a recent find. I think it was found 10 years ago, maybe 15, if I'm correct. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in the recent, say, 20 years. So what's happening as we go through the ascension process is for us to purge that and to realize that we're not those people who, quote unquote, failed. We're no longer not taking it as seriously. I think there was a sense of some of us were more urgent than others during the Atlantean period. And some of us thought it was none of our business, that it would just, blow over, apathy. And I think that most of it are pretty urgent. And you'll find that some of us are telling you straight up, we're fucking urgent. And we're not going to allow this to ever happen again. And it won't. It won't. Because we're coming from a place of realizing that we have to heal a lot of our own misunderstanding about our power. And some of us have had incarnations where we use power brutally, unfairly, greedily. And so many of us have already forgiven ourselves for that. And we realize we're not those persons that did this, that harmed other people for our own, profit, if you will. And then some of you are still trying to figure out where is your path. And your path is to study. Your path is to remember. And as you remember, whatever it is that you need to remember in your particular, soul's history, right? That will lead you to your mission. It's not, the mission unfolds itself every time you take a step forward into self-realization. The mission reveals a bit of itself to you, and you may not even realize that that's actually happening, but it is. There are many wonderful people you need to follow and study, which I mention a lot. One of the guys I mention all the time, probably not enough to be fair, is Adam Apollo. And the best way to actually introduce yourself to Adam Apollo and who he is and what he is as a soul is to go on Gaia.com and look up Adam Apollo, and you'll see interview 1 and 2 where he talks about how he is a Syrian ambassador. In other words, he's a starseed. And so look at that. There are many millions of people who are awakening, who are afraid of this awakening, because the dogmatic training through various Orthodox religions throughout their incarnations has done its work in making them afraid of revealing these gifts. Because, as I've said many lives, 3,000 years, well, actually, no, 2,000 years ago, and, beyond, the Dark Ages, as they call it, for the right fucking reasons, as I said, we were hunted like dogs. 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, we were safe. We had to deal with greed and the hordes and, being conquered and villages burned and pillaged and so on and so forth. But for the most part, we were safe to do our work. But the Dark Ages came with what. I hope you know what I mean. And Orthodox training basically destroyed our ability to wield our healing gifts for the benefit of the collective. And so there's that. Remember, you've got to purge whatever the fuck you have to do. Like if you were burned into stakes, heal that. Do a bonfire. I'm not joking. Like find out where you can go with a friend, go camping, and work with the element of fire in some way, or maybe meditate into a flame, a candle flame. In other words, whatever fear you have, a water fear, a fire fear, connect with that, right? Connect with that and make it your ally, not your enemy. Make it your ally. Reconnect with whatever you're afraid of. Does that make sense? Because that's going to be your deliverance so that you can do the work that you were born here to do at this particular timeline. And again, I hate the word chosen. I keep telling everyone, we're not chosen, we volunteer, which is way more badass. Oh, I volunteered. I'm a volunteer. I'm from a royal bloodline. Yeah, okay, good. Let's feed that ego. That's a good idea. Let's just keep feeding that ego. Great idea. Let's not do that. We volunteered. We came in to do some heavy lifting. The amnesia was necessary to some level, but the problem is it made us kind of doubt why we were here and what was the point of these incarnations. And many of us went through massive, many of you have gone through many dark nights. Now that you know that you're not alone and that the collective is going through a massive dark night of the soul. Andromeda Flame sent me a video I just reposted. You're welcome to look at it, from this really beautiful soul. I have to find out what his name is. I was busy listening to him again and again because he's saying what I'm saying. We're going through a massive dark night of the soul. Dark night of the soul is something. It's a rite of passage. And it's when you realize that everything you thought was real is a lie. Remember Neo? He kind of freaked out when he kind of freaked out when Morpheus gave him the ability to self-realize, right? And that's normal. That's really normal. The only thing with Morpheus and Neo and the difference is that it's an action movie and they want to sell tickets. So instead of showing Neo going through going through a depressive state and curling up, fetal position in his room, he has to be in action, right? It's a movie. But the truth is, you can see when he goes see the Oracle, there's a sense of malaise. There's a sense of sadness. And if you remember the guy who didn't want to remember anything, just make me forget all of it. I know this is all fake. Just make me rich and famous. That scene, that's the majority. They don't want to know. So when that happens and you're surrounded by people who, it's almost like a Twilight Zone, episode where you're like, you're the one who knows and everyone else around you doesn't. Don't get frustrated. Part of the reason why you're around people who don't know while you are aware and awake is because it's to show you what you were, number one. So be compassionate. Number two, the reason why you're with people who are asleep and you're awake is because you're like a quartz crystal vibrating that energy, and just your presence shakes. It's like a very soft shaking beneath their feet. So vibrationally, your essence of being awake is actually helping, seeding very softly. Think of yourself as Johnny Appleseed walking through the Americas, right? And scattering seeds. Some, right? It ended up being apple trees and bearing fruit, and some never rooted, right? Never came through, right? And so in a way, that's what you are energetically when you're in areas where everyone's asleep and you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm depressed. Like, what the hell? It's like, no, you're here. That is part of your mission. And it's it is working. Again, if you don't know the 100 monkey theory, which is a scientific study of some kind, I wish I could give credits. Half the shit I fucking remember and know, I really don't know all of it. I'll be honest. I could look it up right now, but I'm not going to. I want to continue. The 100 monkey theory is the story of a monkey that had figured out a tool. Let's put him in Madagascar. And before they knew it, monkeys all over the world had figured out this tool. So it was etheric consciousness. It was almost like a telepathic communication across because the monkeys had never. So the monkeys in Africa were doing it. The monkeys in other jungles and other parts of the world had figured out the same tool. That's why it's called the 100 monkey theory. And we're very close to monkeys, and we have that same abilities. And so what will happen is that you'll think you invented something, right? Or a thought or consciousness or even a song. And before you know it, someone else will pick it up from the etheric field. Does that make sense? And suddenly you're like, wait, hang on, that's my song. It's like, no, you waited too long. In fact, there's a famous story on that. I'm trying to remember who said that story. I'll tell you the story. I don't remember who, and you might remember who actually did this. So this guy said, I have a friend who wrote this incredible song, amazing song. It was perfect. But his friend kept saying, well, I want to perfect it. I want to perfect it. I want to perfect it. And like a year later, he hears it on the radio. He goes, oh my God, my friend released his song. He sends it to his friend. His friend said, I never released the song. Who the fuck is this? And the song had been released by someone else who had captured it from the ethers. I'm not kidding. It was never stolen. There was none of that malarkey. There was none of that shenanigans. It was literally, the universe was saying, well, you're not going to release it. So, we're going to give it to someone else because you're not doing shit with it. You're like refining it and refining it and refining it. There's something not healthy about being a perfectionist. It's actually unhealthy. Actually, being a perfectionist in your own life about releasing a novel, a piece of poetry, a piece of music, a business plan. No. Perfectionism is actually fear covertly hidden. It's fear. Let's be honest. Because when you read Jack Kerouac on the road, and then you read how he wrote it on the road on a huge roll of, I would say, paper towel, but it was paper, but it was on a roll, and he literally sent a roll to his publisher. The guy had to roll it out to read it. He published it. And Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls, last chapter is all run-on sentences. Like, seriously? Perfectionism? I don't think so. It's a cowardly way out to put the product on, on the world stage. And so if it is a very important download, a very important creation that the universe has given you as its caretaker, as its ambassador to that knowledge, or painting or dancing or whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter. Or new way, psychology, new cutting edge ways, like Carl Jung and his cutting edge concepts of archetypes and so on and so forth, which really resonate more with me than Freud. Freud, I always thought, I don't know about you, dude. But Carl Jung, yeah, felt good to me. So imagine, if not Carl Jung, it would have been someone else. So that's my point here. And I doubt he was a perfectionist. I think he perfected the message over time, but he didn't hold on to the message until it was perfect. That's my point. Let me see what you guys are sharing with me. I hope you guys are sharing some thoughts, because I would love it to be a dialogue. Scrolling all the way up. Let me see here. I feel like when we make discussions with negative emotions, like being possessed. The thing is, negative emotions are part of the human experience. Okay? And negative emotions are something where we process. It's kind of like going on a dirt road and we're being bumped around here. But you're wanting to go to this temple. It's a beautiful temple. It's not a paved road. It's a pain in the ass, and you're being jostled back and forth. So negative emotions are like that. But the end result is the temple. You get to see this temple that's been, forgotten in the jungles, and it's magnificent. It was just recently discovered. And so here you are, and you get to the temple, you walk in, and you're like, wow, it was worth it. And negative emotions are like that. You're going through this really tough road. And it's bumpy, it's uncomfortable, it's jostling, it's triggering you. If you approach it with the right intentions in your heart of coming to a resolution, because of trying to understand where this person's point of view is, or why you're having these triggering negative emotions, where are they coming from, how were they triggered, what's the triggering mechanism that seems to have occurred to create these negative emotions within yourself, or within you and a partner, or you and a family member, or whatever. And then you come from it from a place of, we're going to find the solution. We will machete our way out of this fucking jungle of egoic frameworks, and we're going to find the solutions. And in that decision right there, even if the solution right now is to say, you know what, I think we need to stop talking. We're getting nowhere. Let me take a walk. Let's give each other like space. And let's reconvene. It would be similar to going in the jungle going, wow, I'm jostled. My body hurts. Let's just pitch a tent, take it some time, and we'll start again on the road to the temple tomorrow, right? It's kind of like the same concept. And I think that human beings who are afraid of emotions, who don't want to feel anything, if you're not careful, you can become a psychopath, okay? Feeling nothing is dangerous, and wanting to only feel euphoria is a reality that really hits people. Okay, it's not a norm for the average Joe, and even if you're not the average Joe, let's say you're a 4D, 5D conscious human being, you can't sustain it. Why? Because you can't control every single outside environment that's going to trigger you or hit you at the top of the head. Something negative is going to come at you at some point. And so when we become more self-aware about it, and we try to also align ourselves with people who are in a higher vibrational, who match more of our footsteps, you know what I'm saying, in our own ascension journey, and we don't settle. Well, I've known them since I was in 3rd grade. Yeah, but they don't fucking understand. They don't even know who you are anymore. You're not 3rd grader anymore. You're a grown-ass man or woman. And you're not that person anymore. And so sometimes people hold on to people like they hold on to, they're like hoarders. If you've ever seen a person's house that's a hoarder, it ain't pretty. So imagine like being a hoarder of human beings. Because, well, I've known them since I was, it's like, no, it's got to be more than that. What's the connection? Is it a soul tribe member? Do they at least understand some of your values? Or do you guys share the same types of values? Are you both on a trajectory of ascension? Are you reading similar books or books that are almost parallel to what you're reading? Are they reading? Are they trying to understand the human experience from a higher level, of contemplation, right? And if the answer is no, okay, so I get the women and men who have friends like, well, I got a friend, we just talk about sports. Okay, as long as you're happy with that, that's good. But if you don't have a Doc Holliday, if you don't have a high priest or high priestess as your wingman, you better find one. Okay, you better find one, because that is going to be really, really critical when you eventually get hit by the dark night of the soul once again, because somebody you love will die. You will survive them. That can actually throw you into the dark night of the soul because you thought you had become transcendental, and suddenly you're realizing, my God, I'm having the human experience. I'm missing the person I love who's gone now. That is a human experience. It's not so much a soul's experience, because when the soul is this impurely, you're communicating to your soul is so transcendental. It goes, but it's okay, Tony. The body died. They're fine. They're not gone. They're right here. What are you doing grieving like that? But the egoic framework and the 3D brain that we filter a lot through, and we struggle through it. That's why many of us have had to take a plant medicine with shamans, okay? Let me just say that. Not, it's not a party drug, okay? You got to walk to it with incredible respect and reverence. So my point is, many of us have had to do that, right? To break free of our monkey mind, to get to the steps, okay? The steps of transcendental consciousness, to allow our souls to take hold of the reins rather than to let the ego. And all of these things that happened during the fall of Atlantis, that they're telling me took 100 years to happen. It took 100 fucking years for Atlantis to fall. It happened in 36 hours or thereabouts, but it took 100 years. And many of us know that we should have done more. Just like we know we should be doing more now. Right? So for some of us, that's why we're urgent. That's why we're doing as much as we can in any capacity that we can. Does that make sense? So that's where we're at. And for many, I try to see 360 perspective in any situation and the emotion that come with each perspective. Very beautiful. Let me see. And I apologize. I feel like okay, so let me keep going. That's very true. Hang on. That's very true with art. Also, it's very hard that way when you're a craftsman to do everything perfect. Alarms and people calling me, sorry. Like how our thoughts and ideas aren't our own. They belong to everyone. No, that's not true. Don't confuse downloads where you are being asked to be the caretaker of a download for that particular moment in time, and you decide, due to the egoic perspective of it's not perfect yet, let me hold on to that, and I'm not going to release it to the world, with your own thoughts, okay, through the lens of your own experiences in this incarnation and multiple incarnations, concurrent incarnations and future incarnations, because time is not linear, right? So you've got to be discerning. I try to see, so you try to see 300, that's very good. The 360 perspective of everyone's experiences, emotional experience. At the end of the day, Atlantis is again and again what I'm brought back to. Because, as you know, the deluge, it was known as the deluge, which is the collapse of Atlantis, was something talked about for thousands of years. Noah's Ark is a good example. Noah's, thing. But throughout cultures, see, that's what's interesting. Throughout cultures, all over the world, there's a story of the deluge. That's what's crazy. And because Atlantis was such a massive continent, it's no wonder. It's no wonder. So you see these little islands. I was also fascinated. I don't know if you guys were ever fascinated by Bermuda, the Devil's Triangle. That place scared the shit out of me and fascinated me, both at the same time. So the Devil's Triangle, as you know, I hope you know this by now, is in Bermuda, and you can look it up. You can look up right now on the internet. You could look up the Devil's Triangle, Bermuda, and it is a portal. And whole fucking planes and Air Force pilots have disappeared. Ships, planes, gone. There's a passenger plane that disappeared. They never found the damn plane. So that's not, rumor. There are books written on that. And you might want to look it up. But again, we're talking about portals opening and closing, right? And one of the things that happened with NASA apparently during the eclipse, and I'm not sure if they did it, by the way, but they were sending rockets because they knew the portals were opening. Why? It's some of the shit. It's like we watch these movies on scientists doing stupid shit during massive earth-changing moments. They just start blowing shit up and sending rockets up to places, to moons and stars and suns and eclipses in this case and shit like that. And you're like, why are these people allowed access to anything like that with this lack of wisdom? It's like amazing to me. But thank God we have the mystics and the sages and people like you who've sat in meditation to make sure that the portals were used for the highest good for all concerned. Thank God for you guys, or else we'd really be fucked. But anyway, another person to follow, who's an incredible speaker. The man has the gift. He's got the silver tongue, but brilliantly so. His name is Sasha Stone, and you can look him up on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel which was wrenched out of his hands during. And so definitely check him out. He's amazing. You'll see him. He's like rock star hair. There are two Sasha Stone. I think one's something. I don't know which. I think it's a woman. Look up him, and you'll see the Lazarus. Look up Sasha Stone Lazarus Initiative. There, you can look it up. And he has a Jesus countenance, but he's not Jesus, and he's certainly not claiming he's Yeshua. He's incredibly powerful, and he is a seeker of justice for humanity. He is incredibly passionate, irreverent, and he's built a community in Bali that's pretty amazing. But during the lockdown, during the COVID panic, he left and started traveling the world on a world tour until it was safe to go back to Bali. But he loves Bali. That's his place. So you'll be able to find him. There are people I want to turn you on to because these are dialogues you need to listen to. You need to listen to other wise, powerful, teachers. And he is very much involved in science and spirituality, which is definitely something that has always been hand in hand in the ancient world. Science and spirituality, always. And so that's why it's so shocking when people are so linear in science. It's actually not a match. I always remind people that Einstein dreamed EMC square. He dreamed it. And it's funny how they're trying to rewrite that history, but he dreamed it, and he was a mystic. There are letters he wrote to his granddaughter that he put in his will that they should not be released to the public for 100 years after her death, or something like that, 50 years, something like that, because the collective would not be ready to read what he had to say about reality. Anyway, any questions or comments at all? Would you like to get an oracle reading before I go? And I will do a numerology clinic sometime today. I'll announce it. If you did not go online on YouTube to listen to the guided meditation for April 8th, I highly suggest you do that guided meditation with me in Andromeda Flame, because the portals are still open. Just because it's not April 8th for us on this calendar year, right, doesn't mean that the portals are closed. That it means the portals are open, they're moving. And I asked my guides, are they closing anytime soon? And right now the answer was the portals are open. They have not diminished in power. They're open. So you definitely want to go on my YouTube channel. And I kept them both up. You'll see a woman with dark hair. She looks like a high priestess. And then you'll see a planet, or some kind of planet, So go to whichever one works. For some people, they had no problems going through the whole video. You might want to go to the second one. I've kept them both up. And it's YouTube Sacred Intimacy Tarot. I highly recommend you do that guided meditation. I highly recommend that you prepare yourself and you accept, the ascension and what it means and all of its magnificence, and cross the rivers. The goal is for you to cross the rivers of your own self-realized, self, so that you come to a place of empowerment, self-forgiveness, awakeness, fully understanding that you're able, and I said this before, but I'll say it again, I think it's worth repeating. You have to understand that you are in probably one of the densest planet in the galaxies. It's a school planet. And there are high-level souls, right, who are not in the physical bodies, okay? 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D, who actually know that if they came into a human form here, they would completely lose their consciousness and they would have amnesia. And so the fact that you're in these 3D bodies and you've been able to pierce through the 3D brain filtering to actually start remembering is a feat. It's a fucking miracle. Okay? Because for thousands of years, fear kept us from awakening. Because of the dogmatic religions hunting us down. And now finally you're awakening. You're fearless. Hopefully you're fearless. And when you're afraid, you're using fear as an ally, not as a muzzle. And you're doing all the right steps to keep going. And yes, you're going to lose a lot of people. You are. Because it's not a frequency match. Do you understand? It's like there's certain parts of the world and certain neighborhoods and certain types of people I don't want to be around at all. At all. I just don't want to deal with it. It's not something I want to... I'm not here to convince people to wake up. It's none of our jobs. We're not Jehovah Witnesses knocking on people's doors trying to get them to... We're not doing that. And by the way, methods of using fear and the end of the world and shit like that. We're not doing that. That's not our job. Our job is to be awakened and to answer intelligent questions from people who are on the fringe of awakening. Do you believe in reincarnation? Yes. Why? Well, because, and then you start with your dialogue. Because I remember my past lives. How do you remember your past lives? I just do. Well, what past lives did you remember? Well, I remember this one and that one. And there are millions of people who have remembered their past lives. And it's been proven. How is it proven? Oh, well, they went back to other places. Like they went back to sites that they claimed they had lived there. They went back to families and told families what only the family would know. They knew everyone's name. They knew passageways. They had secrets that no one else but the family would know. And these souls remembered in these new bodies. This is written. This is documented. Well, do you believe in being able to read minds? Yes. How? Well, because there are governments who have done it. Studied it. Would they put that kind of money if it wasn't working, if it wasn't real? So it's like, know how to express it and know how to show people, the truth of these things. And unfortunately, you'll have people who will actually look at you like you've lost your marbles, and you just move on. What people think of you should be the last thing you care about. The only thing that can harm you is your vulnerability to, say, a loved one, a parent, a sibling, a friend, who thinks that you're crazy, which will probably happen, and that you care so much about how they think about you that it actually stops your ascension. You're not here to convince anyone you're not crazy. That's a defensive energy. That is a waste of your time. I remember my twin telling me, I don't really believe you can do blah, blah, blah. And I said, sweetie pie, I love you, but I don't give a fuck what you believe in. That was my twin. We've been together for hundreds of millions of years. And that's when I realized I'd become transcendental even to what he thought of me, which was a very freeing moment. He was shocked because I'd always cared what he thought, how I looked, what I said, what I read, my God, even what I ate. Because, he was a vegetarian. I became a vegetarian, not because he was pressuring me, but because it made sense to me. For example, right? So that day when he said, I don't believe in X, Y, and Z, and I said to him lovingly, not even angry, defensive, I went, baby, I love you, but I don't give a fuck what you believe I do or can't do or will do. But I still love you, baby. And guess what? As he saw the confidence, and not one from an egoic perspective, from a place of just truth. 2 + 2 = fucking 4. At least in 3D, it's true. Once he saw that, he started listening to me from a higher level of consciousness, his own, not mine. And he started saying to me, and came to me on his own, I really think you do. I really do see that you have the ability to do X, Y, and Z. I went, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, cool. I still didn't give a fuck. It didn't bolster my ego. It didn't feed whatever I had needed to be fed before. Because I had come to the realization a long time ago that what I was doing in this incarnation, my abilities, my whatever, the download, whatever, were real. I was past the point of gaslighting myself and recapitulated all the times I had gaslit myself. Because I recapitulated it, meaning I went back into time going, my God, this happened to me. I was 18 years old and I didn't believe in it. And I didn't believe in it because of lack of self-worth. I actually pinpointed why I didn't believe in it. Why would it happen to me? Who the fuck am I? And then I realized, wait a minute, lack of self-worth. Okay, that's what that happened. That's why I gaslit myself. I didn't believe I had that kind of power or that I was worthy of that kind of download. Why would they pick me when they were much more advanced people? Why the fuck not? And how would I not know who I am? So those are the kinds of conversations I invite you to have with yourself. The interesting part about people like you who are very humble is that the assholes, the arrogance, the swaggering spiritual Buddha bun bastards that are out there have no problems fucking believing what they can do. And the irony is those of you who are really powerful don't believe one shred of it. It doesn't matter how big the evidence is. You don't believe it's you, that you have that power. That's the irony. But also, most of the great leaders didn't want to lead. That's also a great sign. Because most people who are greedy or who don't have the skill sets to lead or to ignite passion and fire into people, well, look at them. They're leading us right now into fucking the abyss because they're doing it for themselves. They're not the gardeners who plant trees. That there's an old saying, which I'm paraphrasing, a loving gardener is a gardener who plants trees knowing he will not be there to enjoy the shade of those trees. That's you. That's not our current leadership. And the reason why I'm talking about leadership is because in Atlantis, we allowed leadership to take us down the wrong path through all of these things that they were doing and allowing, which we knew was going to set us up for harm. And yet we didn't take it. We thought, well, it'll pass. But it never did until the deluge came and until it was too late. And those who were highly psychic, highly spiritually or intellectual and spiritually involved with the universe, with their guides, got out of there before it began, before the waves started going back and then coming at full barrel speed. They had left, and because they could feel it, kind of like how you smell rain before it comes. They felt it, and so this is why Atlantis has been really prominent in my life throughout this incarnation. And it's not about me and you trying to convince people Atlantis was real. There are 2 million. There's too many. There are millions, but too many millions of people who remember it. Quite literally remember it. Regina Meredith, who's a very wonderful journalist, spiritual journalist on Gaia.com, talks about it. She remembers it. If you're fascinated by things like that, it's because you remember it. It's because you were there. And so we have to see this as an opportunity for us to right the wrongs. And maybe it's very possible that karmically, some of the very similar leadership that we had in Atlantis, some of them, don't think they're not powerful, charismatic, right? Are playing it out again. And we're being asked, we've got a choice. And the choice is to spiritually, energetically transmute and reset this whole framework that is going on right now to bring us to the ascension consciousness for the whole collective, for as many people as possible to cross the rivers away from these maniacs. But I don't think we're going to see a deluge anytime soon. That's not my point. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that we're looking to ascend. And the ascension is a split, as I'm sure you've heard, between 3D planet and 5D planet. And the 3D planet, the way I keep seeing it, is Mad Max. It's a fucking shit show. And I know me, and I know you want nothing to do with that. And so when Andromeda Flame and I, when she led actually a Zoom, intention, and we went into deep silent meditations, all 9 of us, all women, on the side note, all of us were women. I'm sure there were amazing men out there doing the same, in hopefully men's group, and co-ed groups, and couples. But we saw incredible generosity, abundance, and what many would poo-poo as an utopian society that still had its polarity. And the polarity wasn't war or famine. It was death. It was maybe jealousy, disagreements, but things that could be managed with conscious compassion and patience. And so that's what we're looking at. When I think about Thich Nhat Hanh and how he lived his life as a monk teacher, and his patience, read his book Anger, one of the best books ever written on anger. Best books. The second book I would recommend is True Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. All small books. Very easy to read books. And I would read them. There's certain books I tell people just brainwash yourself. Just listen to it again and again and again. Some books, read it. You need the silence of those moments to read. And to read out loud to yourself. But Atlantis is coming to mind again and again for me personally, and it has been throughout my incarnation, in this incarnation anyway, because we have very similar choices to make. But the choice isn't to war against this energy. There is no need for war. I think, actually, they just showed that was our mistake. The rebel faction used the physical means to rebel against these dark forces rather than, I'm not joking, use spiritual power of manifesting and transmuting negative energy. Using crystals and being surrounded by water magnifying everything. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go up and look up Dr. Emoto, Emoto. Dr. Emoto's water studies, a Japanese scientist who proved that water is conscious. There's a consciousness to water. And there's a consciousness to plants. We know that. Okay, with that said, we didn't use those elements. We were so fucking angry. As the rebel factions, we were so afraid. Once we saw the writing on the wall, we could smell the rain coming, right? We could smell it. That we used the physical force instead of the collective manifesting visualization of dissolving and transmuting this dark energy into nothing. That's where we made the mistake. That was the mistake. And because there was a clash of, honestly, on both magnificent, powerful souls, which was, brought, the energy was even more explosive because of the crystals energy, all the crystal temples, all the way we use crystals and our knowledge of how to use crystal and its full impact, which, by the way, on the side note, we still don't know what the fuck to do with crystals to its full power. We really don't. That created a perfect storm. Kind of like the movie, The Perfect Storm, the book. A perfect fucking storm. That's what they just showed me. Watch the movie, The Perfect Storm. It's fucking horrible what happened to those men. But it happened to a whole civilization. The frequency was wrong. Based on greed on one side and anger on the other by the rebel forces. That's where we fucked up. That's actually what happened. So, does that make sense to you guys? It's pretty intense, right? So for whatever reason, for the last 24 hours, Atlantis, I was quiet. I did no lives, nothing, because I was sitting back and looking at what was being guided. And I will be doing a video. It'll be just a very primer, like a little video, nothing exciting. But I think I'd like to bring this live and connect it to the video, and I'll upload this live so that you guys can listen to it. I think it's called Having the Same Thought Vibration is how people are able to read one's mind. I turned off my humanity when my parents took me to the LA Rights when I was 1. Wow, it's all flooding back. To make all the wrongs right, keep it right this time. I seen a video on YouTube called The Secret Power of Sound. Well, sound, frequency, all of that, yes. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm not a big fan of crystal bowls, because they're made out of, what they do is they powder quartz crystal and then they mix it into bowls, right? Into some kind of glass bowls or, but it's not real. In other words, they're not taking a block of quartz crystal, right? Which is what I'm personally looking for that. They're not taking a block of quartz crystal and polishing the shit out of it, whatever, making it a crystal bowl. That's why I'm kind of leery. I'd rather get brass bowls, to be honest with you. Brass bowls from Tibet, Nepal, and different sound frequency instruments. I know that for whatever reason, tin pan, I think. Well, I forgot what it's called. Shruti, I like that. Anything that's connecting with a harmonium, 432 hertz, is what you want your instruments to be tuned to, by the way, on the side note. And 432 is what you want, because 440 is harmful. And you can thank the Rockefellers or Rothschild, whichever one. I think it was the Rockefellers, actually, who decided that all instruments would be tuned to 440, knowing it was harmful. There's studies of color paints that affect your moods and your behaviors. Okay? So there are schools who should know better, especially with kids who have neurological different ways of learning, who have these weird-ass fucking strobe lights on the ceilings, as you all know, and paints that are shit, instead of saying, Do we really want to heal these kids? Well, let's find out what colors are the most beneficial for the human mind to learn, and what kind of lighting should we have in this classroom so we can have the best possible outcome to heal our neurologically sensitive children. They don't give one fuck, or else they would do that, because it's known. And it's I know psychologists who know about this. And I've talked to psychologists who sit in, I don't know why I'm saying that, I'm going on a rant obviously, but who have gone on IEPs, individual educational programs, or educational plans, yeah, who have sat there knowing all this shit, and they can't say shit because the superintendent, the principal, it's all, everyone's on the payroll. So, but there are incredible educators. I've talked to them who are muzzled lions. And so for those of you who are that, if this is for you, if you're a psychologist, psychiatrist, educator, and I just hit your noodle with this, let me tell you something. Do it anonymously, but start talking about it anonymously. One of my friends is in the, I'm not going to even expose her, but she does everything anonymously. Voiceover only. No face, ever. No real name, no, but she's doing her part. And so I highly recommend that if I just triggered you, right, and you don't want to be, because as you know, they all look through us for our social media to see where we're about, and people literally will lose their job on what they're saying, or not get a job because of what they're saying. So I get it. I'm not going to play games with you and go, transmute that energy. No. Protect yourself. But in the interim, do your part. And be anonymous. And if you become viral, you'll get a book deal anyway, and then you'll fucking leave your the shackles of this job, this career that has you muzzled. But I can't tell you how many educators I've sat across who said, I know, but they won't let us. There's no budget for it. Fucking bullshit. There is a budget for it. You just stop taking, some of these people are making $500,000 a year. What the fuck? For what? You don't need $500,000 a year. You don't. Okay, so we have to do better for that. That came out of nowhere because you brought up sound frequency. Sound frequency is very important for healing, and the Rife machine was used to heal. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into it. It's spelled REIF, I believe, 2 F's, I believe. Look it up. I'm not going to say more because I'll get pulled. On the side note, I am being shadow banned, which is fine. And it's what's best color for bedroom? We got to look at color. No, look it up. Look it up. What is the best color? Personally, me, I like a pale, almost a lavender color. I also like very pale peach, but colors that would aid in my in being relaxed. I mean, I see people with like fucking red rooms, black walls. I'm like, okay, whoa, it's kind of harsh, it's kind of dark, but look it up. It's there. It's on the internet. There's no, and compare. Don't just pick one color spectrum analysis of what's good and what's bad. Go ahead and look at multiple and see what they all align to. And then you'll be able to find the perfect color for concentration and focus and creativity, for learning. I remember when I used to homeschool my son, I would have high frequency music that was specifically to concentrate and to learn. I would have that very softly in the background that would calm him and gather his ability to focus. I did that for years and years. So this has been out for a long time, and you can look that up. You can also look up, I remember buying those, at the time we had CDs, and that's what I was buying, those CDs. And I would just loop them. And then for night, we would have whale sounds because the sonic frequency of whales and so forth. The Russian used to have a test. They had done some kind of study on pregnant women swimming with dolphins every day from the time they conceived until they gave birth. And they found that these kids being born, they were called the dolphin babies, which good luck in finding that shit on the internet. It's weird. But the Russians were very advanced. They may not have believed in a lot of religions, but they sure in the hell believed in in not the occult, in what is it? I forgot. In esoteric ideas and concepts and things of that nature. But anyway, there were dolphin babies. They were called the dolphin babies, and they came out 20 to 30% higher in IQ because of the sonic frequencies of the dolphins. That, what else can I tell? Yeah, so, and I don't remember where I read that. I must have read that when I was like 14, 15. I was reading all these books like Ruth Montgomery, and I was not a fan of Edgar Cayce, the Sleeping Prophet. I was turned off by him. Aleister Crowley made my skin crawl. He was disgusting. And then later on, I found out why. So there were Blavatsky, never into her. I did buy one of her books, The Lost Land, only because it talks about Atlantis. I mean, not Atlantis, excuse me. Tibet, which is called The Sealing of the World, right? And I've always been fascinated by Tibet, constantly. And I'll never go to Tibet. There's no way I'll ever go. Not because the Tibet now is not the Tibet I want to visit, right? I wanted to visit Tibet, the Tibet of 1923. That would have been the Tibet I would have wanted to see. But it's gone. So what I'm trying to say is that there are these lost knowledges written by these Blavatsky's famous, but Ruth Montgomery's lost in the wind. It's the weirdest thing to me. So you may want to look her up, and some of her writings may feel pedestrian, a little pedestrian, but there's nuggets of gold in there. She's incredible. Another person who was writing a lot of books, which was comparing many religions and beliefs, Acharya, Acharya, initial S, Acharya S. This amazing soul who looked like something out of the Pleiades, blonde hair, blue-eyed, died, I believe, of breast cancer. She left her 12, 13-year-old boy behind, who I would love to know who he is and what's happened. I would love to know, but there's no way. She was never famous the way she should have been famous. But she wrote books that were massive, the size of fucking Bibles. But the knowledge this incredible sentient being has, by the way, still has. She's still, alive as a soul, and maybe incarnated back as a starseed. Maybe she needed to come back in and kick some ass. So, in a spiritual sense, kind of look for these these older authors who were really studying and looking and searching for knowledge. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. If you've never read the book, if you've never heard of the book, that's the book that got the Da Vinci Code written. Holy Blood, Holy Grail was basically stolen and rewritten into a much more entertaining a morsel called the Da Vinci Code, right? So, and that book says a lot. And when you connect that with Freddie Silver, that's another guy you guys should be reading. And he's current, he's alive, he's kicking, he's amazing, he's a hell of a personality. I think he's like 6'5", and he was raised in Portugal, British, and he lives in Maine, from what I understand. Long story short, he's what I would call Indiana Jones meets Saint Germain. I'm not kidding, if you know what I'm saying. He is irreverent, he's funny, he's brilliant, he's fascinated by the crop circles. He wrote a book on crop circles. He's written a book on divine plan, on how to set up your space, even your little space, to magnify the frequency and energy based on what he's studied with Stonehenge, the pyramids, and so forth. He's amazing. So Freddie Silver's another guy you guys need to find out about. And purple, I heard a good fourth chakra, if I'm not mistaken. I heard about light purple. I think it depends on exactly what's the best. So I personally, you're going to laugh, but my bedroom right now is purple right now as we speak. But I'm sitting here trying to figure out, do I want this? In other words, I moved into this farm, right? And the walls were already painted, to be clear. And unfortunately, there are black curtains, which there's no way this is going to... I have my curtains coming. I have these beautiful curtains that are made out of linen, 100% linen, and they're amazing. So I'm going to bring those in and take these down because I'm not into black anything anymore. Though, I still kind of wear a little more black than I want to be honest. I'm more into creams, beiges, very pastel-y colors, even though I'm very dark, olive skin, dark eye, hazel-eyed and so forth. But I just feel like I'm going more towards those kinds of colors, right? But when I look at the walls of this purple, yeah, and it is purple, there's no doubt. I personally have always had very pale lilac walls that would turn pink when the sun would set, right? Kind of like clouds, right? And I like that better, and I'm probably going to repaint it so that it's a lighter shade to bring more depth to the room, honestly. But I'm not like, I have to admit, I'm not turned off by this color, but it's, I want my own personality to come into this room as well. So there's that. Some people, it would be like a beautiful blue, And then, of course, I am having a love affair with certain types of wallpapers that show scenes, like what they call chinoiserie. And it's more of like painted, like almost in charcoal, like a scene from like a copper plate scene from a 16th, 17th century scene of trees and so forth, Well, I love that kind of concept. I think it's very elegant and so forth. But the point is, go and do some paint chips and then compare it to what you love and what resonates with what the psychologists are saying, about which color is going to be best for X, Y, and Z. And then you should be in a good state of relaxation, you know what I mean? Where you'll be able to really, really sleep well because it's going to connect with what you need, right? What you personally need. But going back to Atlantis, does the divine blueprint. Yes, my love. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. So the divine blueprint is written by Freddie Silva. Okay. He's written tons of books. Okay. And you can look him up on Gaia.com. Him and Regina Meredith are like soulmates. I'm not kidding. And I don't mean that in a lover's thing, like a brotherly, sisterly thing. They're hysterical together. And check him out. He's fucking brilliant. Did I tell you the story of Yeshua? That I was, I'm going to tell you this story because it really blew my mind. I'm going to share this with you. So I had a client who wanted to buy a cactus quartz crystal, which, by the way, I still have them for sale, and I'm going to put them up for you guys to see on a live soon, so you guys can purchase one or two or whatever. But what I do with these cactus quartz crystal, is I meditate an intention of an energy. So, for example, I've meditated an energy for a client on Mary Magdalena and Archangel Michael. This client wanted Buddha, but this particular quartz crystal would not have none of it. None of it. It wanted nothing to do with Buddha. It wanted, I'm not kidding, okay? These crystals are powerful. All crystals are powerful. It wanted Yeshua. So after a little tussle, an arm wrestling, I gave up. I surrendered. I go, okay, fine. If the client wants Yeshua, fantastic. If they don't, but I'll just keep it. And by the way, I kept it. But let me continue. So as I was going through the meditation and putting light codes of ascension of Yeshua and other light codes that were being guided into that quartz crystal by Yeshua, guess what I saw? I had a vision of him getting married with Mary Magdalene. They were dressed in white linens, and they were dressed in white and cream. And it was a wedding cortege. It was a close-up shot, but it was a Polaroid moving shot. And there was a white awning, almost like white material, held over their head, and they were all laughing. The next scene I saw through the lens of Yeshua, it's on the beach. And I'm watching Mary Magdalena walking towards him. She's nude, except she's got a red dress, holding, like hiding her upper body and lower body. You can see her thighs, her bare arms, her brown skin, her long dark hair. And she's walking towards him. And I paused going, red dress? Red? Like what? Right? Because I'm thinking ink, right? Because here I am, analytical Tony going, hang on. Where in the fuck are they getting red for linen, right? How is that working? And so I was puzzled by it, but I was done with my manifestation and meditation and downloading light codes into that crystal. And it was time for me to make, the meal for the day. And I decided to watch Freddie Silver talking about the Knights Templar, totally unrelated to this, totally unrelated, with Regina Meredith. And what does he say? Suddenly out of nowhere, he mentions Mary Magdalena. And he said the thing about Mary Magdalena, she came from a group of high priestesses, and they all wore red dresses. And I was like, no way, no fucking way. There was no way I could have known. And that's how the universe, at least for me, and probably for you too, if you pay attention, works. It knew I was questioning. It led me to, of all the shows on Gaia, or all the things I could have watched or listened to that particular show. And literally 20 minutes into it, I got my answer. You didn't make it up, Tony. That was Mary Magdalena. You did see her. And yes, they wore red dresses. So the point of it is that when you get downloads that are non-corrupted downloads, the universe will support you as you questioning, because you're supposed to question yourself. You're not supposed to just take everything coming out of you like, oh yeah, it's God's word, right? That's a little nuts. So, and the universe said, no, you're absolutely right. There it is. It happened. You saw it, and you saw it exactly verbatim. And so that crystal I have, and I won't sell it because it was a gift to me. I have an incredible connection with Yeshua, and I've been chasing Yeshua since I was 8 years old, as I told a friend of mine. But I could never feel good about what I was being shown by the powers that be. It never sat right with me. So one of the first books I read at 17, I read a lot of books during that time. From the time I was 13 until I was I think I was 21, 22, I was reading a lot of books. The book is called Jesus Lived in India by Holger Kirsten. It was written in the 1970s, I believe. And it's still up for print. You can still look for it. It's on eBay for $6.60. I'm looking at it right now as we speak. And it's on IB Books. It's $5. The point is, it's available. And I will post, Rachel. I didn't know one had spoken to you, but we'll go ahead. I'll put them together. And I will do a live, and we'll go from there. We'll see, right? And Rachel, honey, I can send you pictures personally, and you can tell me which one, right? And Rachel, honey, I can send you pictures personally, and you can tell me which one. Mary Magdalena, would you like? I did, like I said, I did Mary Magdalena for this client. I did Archangel Michael. No problem, none. The crystal said, yeah, we'll do that. But you may want, for whatever reason, Buddha could still come up. Siddhartha could still come up, But so the client picks the crystal and says, this is the intention. I'd like you to download it with these light codes. You know what I mean? With this particular power. It could be Metatron. Could be anything on that level. But I guess at this point now I have to ask you guys, if you guys are interested, if the crystal says no, and it says it wants to be this, hopefully you'll accept it. That's something I had to find out. And it's interesting too, because crystals choose you. And I've lost, in my whole entire life, I've lost one crystal. It was a kunzite. Oh my God, I was so hurt. But then I realized that the crystal needed to go to someone else. And guess what? I found a crystal. It was a tiger's eye. I literally found it in a parking lot. I was like, you gotta be kidding. So I have it. So crystals choose you. And I've talked about the quartz crystal skull that I have. And it chose me. It was, you might say, oh, well, you're making it up. No, I wasn't. When you put certain crystals on your third eye, it won't always happen, but sometimes when you're really in your mojo, you'll actually see violet lights. You'll see geometric lights. When you're not in your mojo, you'll see nothing. It'll just be like your eyes are closed and it's black, nothing's happening. So all of these things are real. It's really, so sometimes you're having these incredible experiences and sometimes there's not, it's just, It's not your day. Let's just put it that way. So, but I want to go ahead and pull an oracle card for you guys. Are you up for it? Are you guys up for oracle? And then share the live if you can. I'm trying to share mine, but it's, oh, okay, yeah, I can share my live. Okay, perfect. Let me just go ahead and share the live. And I always share with about the same types of people, pretty much. And yeah. So if you can share the live, awesome. And I love a good oracle pull from you. Oh, fantastic. Okay, perfect. So let's do it. Thank you, Genevieve. All right. Let me look for my... And today, I'd like to, again, stick with Light Workers Oracle. Hang on. Actually, Earth Warrior Oracle. Sorry, guys. Earth Warriors Oracle. We're going to pull from that. I haven't pulled from that. I think I've pulled from that once before, and that's it. It's a very Pachamama... when I say Pachamama, it has a very, the art is very much jungle, Amazonian, Aya, the grandmother, the grandfather energy. And I think we should do it. So I'm going to go and pull from that, okay? So it's called Earth Warrior Oracle. And it's my girl, Alana Fairchild. She's my girl. She doesn't know it, but she's the best. All right, so let's go ahead and pull. Give your angels, guides, and allies permission to guide you in this session. Thank you, Genevieve. You're so sweet. I really appreciate it. And when you guys are ready, pick from the top, bottom, or middle. And of course, you know how this works, okay? When you're ready. And then I'll come back. Thank you so much. I'll come back to do the numerology in a couple hours, in a few hours. Okay, so if you want to do, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm getting bottom. Okay, anyone else? All right, I'm going to go bottom. Quant. Oh, this is interesting. 28. 28 in Kabbalah numerology is a trusting lamb, trusting others instead of yourself. Quante, sweet paradox of empowering grace. Let me read from that. So 28 is a trusting lamb, trusting other people above yourself, which is a problem. 2 plus 8 is 10. 10 is the wheel of fortune, which, is what do you want? And you bring that about, right? You manifest it. 10, the wheel of fortune, is that in Kabbalah and Tarot. And then take it down to 1, the singular number 1, is the sun. So let's read what she says, okay? Let's begin. 28, Quante, sweet paradox of empowering grace. When the mind says no, but the heart leaps with joy, we are ripe for a transmission of empowering grace. The sweet paradox is that the more impossible the situation appears to be, the more we are supported through grace, and our divine success manifests swift and complete. Let the faith of the heart overcome doubt. Allow your mind to be filled with wonder at the unlimited power of the divine, and you shall bear witness to sacred manifestation. In a reading, when there is something within your heart that you are on this planet to accomplish, you shall be given equal grace, power, talent, and ability to succeed in that mission. This is the divine promise and sacred plan for you. If a miracle is required for success, then one shall be given. Pray with courage and confidence for your rightful divine inheritance, and allow your bold heart and loving soul to believe in your beautiful, hope-filled destiny. I'm going to read it again, this particular sentence. Pray with courage and confidence for your rightful divine inheritance, and allow your bold heart and loving soul to believe in your beautiful, hope-filled destiny. Spiritual guidance. Quenti, the Quechua word for hummingbird, is the sky jewel of the Andes. Hummingbird bears the soul medicine of spiritual grace and evoke the evolution to conquer any obstacle through the extraordinary power of the heart. The concept of spiritual grace can be challenging to the mind. We often don't realize how much we have been conditioned to subconsciously demand that progress in our lives be difficult, even whilst At a conscious level, we bemoan the struggle and wish that things could be easier. We want help, but we believe that we are unworthy or that we have to earn our success off the back of our own efforts. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I'm going to read it again. We want help, but we believe that we are unworthy or have to earn our success off the backs of our own efforts. Ask for help. I tell all my clients, and I still get clients coming back to me saying, well, I said it once. I'll give you the example. Every morning, give your angels, guides, and allies permission to guide you in word and action. This is how I say it. Angels, guides, allies. I give you permission to guide me in word and action. I'm so grateful for your help. I really need it. Angel Metatron, Angel Michael, Angel Gabriel, Angel Raphael, Angel Uriel, please protect me. Walk beside me. Guide me. I do both now because many of us going through the ascension are getting attacked. Okay? And I need help. And yeah, I'm worthy of that help. Okay? Without an egoic attachment. You know why I'm worthy? Because my little girl is worthy. If you can't make yourself feel worthy, if you as the adult self can't look in the mirror and go, and all you can say is I'm not worthy, then look down at your little girl self, the one that's 5 or 6, looking up at you with expectant eyes. Be mama bear, papa bear for the inner child in you. That's the back door to finding your self-worthiness. You protect that little child, because in real life you would. The divine wants us to engage and participate in the realization of our destiny, but if we do not abandon our arrogance and learn how to surrender spiritually, we will never fulfill our potential. There is a way to allow for spiritual grace so that any obstacle can be surmounted, even the invisible ones that seem to block your progress from some unknown source. It is not a question of needing to become more powerful, but of your relationship with the divine needing to become more vitalized. Then grace can flow, creating success in the same situation that would have otherwise defeated you. I'm going to tell you something about what that means. So when I was doing my LBL hypnosis, right? And I was going up the staircase to the Galactic Council. The stairs had an invisible, I could not go any further. I went, oh my God, did I do something wrong? And instead, Yeshua, right, said nothing. And before I knew it, I was in like what you would call Lake Victoria in Africa, right? All these waterfalls were just, it was beautiful, but it was snowy. And we were sitting on the snow. And Yeshua kept averting his eyes, not because his eyes looked like moving clouds and skies. And we spoke telepathically. And I got to be my husband. And we forgave each other. We hugged. And my son came into that circle as a 12-year-old boy. And we were family again. And then I was brought to my twin. And I realized what was the issues with my twin. And I saw a past life as we were different sentient beings, right? The yellow people, I call them. And then I was back at the staircase of the quartz crystal staircase. And I was unimpeded. I had done what I needed to do before I could meet with the Galactic Council and went up the staircase, and there exploded the face of Krishna. And boom, there I was in front of the Galactic Councils of different species, sentient beings. So sometimes when you're stopped from something, it isn't because you're not worthy of getting X, Y, and Z. It's because you have unfinished business. Finish your business, and then the path will be easy. It will be eased, right? When hummingbird brings you medicine, you have a high spiritual destiny, one that is going through triumph against the seemingly insurmountable odds stacked against you. Hummingbirds have the highest metabolic rate of any animal on earth, with their hearts capable of beating at over 1,000 beats per minute. These remarkable little creatures have an exceptional high need for oxygen, yet some of the species have evolved to thrive in low oxygen, high altitude environments of the Andes Mountains, flying in truly rarefied air at over 15,000 feet above sea level. This adaptation was possible because of a tiny genetic mutation that affects how oxygen is metabolized in the blood. The subtle inner evolution opened up the power of some hummingbirds to thrive quite literally in higher worlds. Hummingbird medicine empowers the soul for success in situations that would seem unlikely. Did you hear that? Unlikely. The new earth, that's unlikely. That's unlikely. Your new life, that's never going to happen. That can't happen. It doesn't even make sense. I don't even know how I'm going to get to my new life. But yet, it's transmuted by your own willingness to surrender to the impossible becoming possible. That's actually one of my lines to myself, making the impossible possible. This medicine brings a subtle adjustment within the blood or feminine life force and how it's received and processed the enlivened presence of spirit. In turn, this leads to extraordinary and heightened abilities. Trust in the incredible possibilities that are birthed through the union of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine energies within you. Sacred. So some of the unfinished business we as women have is to heal our incarnation, our past incarnations, our future incarnations, our present incarnations as the masculine. To actually make peace with some of the things we did as in masculine incarnations, and to actually see that in some incarnations as the masculine, we were amazing men, good men, honorable men, men of integrity. Just like in some incarnations of the feminine, we were assholes. We have to stop pointing fingers to opposite genders. Healing process. Rest quietly and be aware of your heart as you place your hand there lightly and say out loud. I'm going to say it and then you guys are going to repeat it. I call upon the sacred testimony of all perfected ones who have laid down their blood for the very purpose for which I have been born. I bear witness to their sacred testimony of love in the spiritual realms, as they call out for the cleansing of my bloodline. No impediment can stand against my divine fulfillment. Allow your heart to feel released and peaceful and relaxed. Without it having to make a logical sense, allow yourself to speak from the heart now by saying, I ask for divine forgiveness for my transgressions and the transgressions within my ancestral line. From the beginning of time, I open my heart and genuine remorse for all violations against love that my ancestors and I ever made. We started this live about Atlantis and how we failed. This is your oracle card. Relax as you connect with your heart, and then continue by saying, pure sacrificial blood of the Sacred Heart has already been shed for me, our souls. The spiritual blood of unconditional love, beating in the living Sacred Heart, washes through my heart and bloodline now, back to the beginning of time. This process will evoke an energetic release from your blood, which you may feel if you are attuned to subtle energies. Rest and allow this to happen without attachment or analysis. Even if you don't consciously sense something taking place, it will be happening. When you are ready, complete the process with the following statement. Through the intercession of the divine blood testimony from the pure Sacred Heart, all impediments have been answered. Grace flows and divine love manifests. So be it. Finish with your prayers in hand. If there's an emotional release that follows this process in your dreams or your daily life, take a moment to place one hand on your heart, reconnecting with a feeling of love and peace within. Know that this is a continuation of the healing release and that it will subside, leaving more space for grace and fulfillment to flow through you. You have completed your healing process. Aho. Wow. We'll be using these cards a lot more often, ladies and gentlemen. It's like, wow. But this was right up the, forgive, forgive, forgive. what was not done in Atlantis, what was not done in many of your bloodlines, throughout many incarnations, in this planet, on other planets, across timelines, dimensions, right? Transmuting and releasing and making yourself worthy of ascending. And these subtle energies of negativity is what you have to cleanse from your heart chakra, from your root chakra, work on all your chakras. And I'm going to upload this live. I'll be back to do a numerology clinic. I've got some stuff to do this morning, but I want to thank you all for being here. I'm so honored to have you here, and I want to thank you for the work that you're doing energetically and in the 3D world. Every bit you do, every smile you give a stranger, every generosity of time, of even blessing someone who you know needs a blessing. You just feel it across. You're driving by homeless people, or you're seeing someone dejected, or you're going up to someone who needs a compliment just because they need it and you know it. Oh, you're so sweet. Words cannot accept what a fantastic gift you are to this reincarnation. So grateful. We are all very grateful for these incarnations, and we are so grateful, right, for the fact that we are awakened, and we are getting more and more awakened with every step we take towards the light to ourselves, the light of the divine love that created us and that gave us the gift of free will. And free will is a double-edged sword. It's a sword of truth. It's a sword of self-liberation and self-realization, or it's a sword of self-destruction. And we have the free will to decide what we want to do. So our job is to support each other, to always choose the best outcome for us. And in doing so, we choose the best outcome for the collective. Sending you much love on your journey. Namaste. Be well.